deluded. By people, she meant herself, of course. How she could have thought she'd created the perfect life, when, in fact, it was one gust of wind away from toppling over and crashing to the ground. Pull out the wrong card, nudge the wrong Jenga block, and the whole thing could collapse around your ears, however sturdy you thought you had made the foundations. When she saw what she saw, Jen knew that it was a chink in the armour, a scratch on the glossy finish. What she didn't understand, and why would she, was that that first tiny fissure would allow in the drip that became a flood. That first flap of a butterfly's wings would eventually cause the tsunami. Of course she didn't. If she had, then maybe she would have handled things differently. She might have looked away, pretended she hadn't noticed. She might have decided that, really, it was none of her business. Better still, she might have turned on her mid-height uniform heels and run in the other direction. Chapter 2. Jen looked at her watch. There was still 3.5 hours to go until her shift ended. She was only a little over halfway through the day. Despite the fact that she liked her job, she didn't like it that much. She would still rather be almost anywhere other than here. She had worked her way up, over the 15 years since her youngest, Emily, had started nursery, to become the reception manager at a smart boutique hotel in an area of London that had happily been called Fitzrovia for years, but which was now trying to rebrand itself, somewhat desperately, it seemed to Jen, as NoHo. Becoming a manager meant that she earned slightly more money, while still seeming to do exactly the same job she had always done, except for being allowed to boss a couple of people around. Truthfully, she didn't really enjoy that side of things as much as she had thought she might. She would blush when she had to reprimand a junior colleague for arriving late, stutter when she was forced to correct their desk-side manner. She wasn't entirely comfortable becoming one of them after years of being one of us. The Fitzrovia Hotel cultivated a shishi image. Flock wallpaper and dark wood. Large works of modern art by exciting up-and-coming, read cheap, artists. At least, they may have been up-and-coming when the hotel had opened in the mid-80s. Now they were all up and gone, as far as Jen could tell. None of them onto greater things. A spiky iron sculpture took pride of place in reception, occasionally threatening to spear one of the guests who walked too close, the embodiment of the phrase, a lawsuit waiting to happen. The desk behind which Jen spent her days was fashioned from battered copper-coloured metal. Occasionally, when one of the front-of-house staff was having a bad day, they would hit it with whatever implement they could lay their hands on. No one ever seemed to notice a few new dents. The hotel bar and restaurant attracted the beautiful and not quite so beautiful people who worked in the nearby media companies and art galleries that had gravitated to the area from Soho, drawn to its lower rents and more bohemian atmosphere. Faux bohemian, Jen always thought, bohemian with a trust fund. While the occasional visiting TV or movie star who hadn't been able to get a room at the Charlotte Street, but didn't want to suffer the more establishment formality of the Dorchester or Claridge's, would sometimes show up to stay the night. Jen rarely mixed with them. She generally spent a lot of time dealing with personal assistants, managers, managers' assistants, and even assistants' assistants. One time, there had been a third assistant. The assistant to the assistant of the assistant. That was how important she was considered in the world. She got to deal with the help's help. Apart from the odd celebrity, the hotel's guests were mainly made up of well-to-do tourists and a loyal handful of regulars who made the Fitzrovia their home whenever they were in London on business. It was a friendly place. Only 32 rooms. Small enough that they could cater to people's individual needs. Big enough to get noticed. Any plans for the